right. Hello, hello. Let's see. Let me know if we are
Hello,
on.
hello.
There we go.
Let's see.
All right.
Let me know if we are hello, hello. There we go. All right, let me know.
Okay. I think we are all set. All right, so let me see. Oh, we've got some participants on. Hi, everybody. Definitely drop a link in the chat and let me know who you are and where you're coming from. And I'm going to try and get it so we can all see one another. Hold on a second. Okay. And then we will start here in a minute as soon as a few more of us get on. But thanks for joining. Thanks for joining. Oh. Okay. So just trying to see if we can get a gallery view here so that we can see one another. Not sure. Hi, Michael from Long Beach. Yeah, everybody definitely drop your names. Drop your names and where you're coming from. This is, the best way for us to get connected. I'm sure most of us are in a shelter in place type of a situation. So I'd love to kind of hear where everybody is coming from computer wise. Awesome. Hi, Cindy. Hi, Eileen. Hi, Dennis. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining. Thanks so much. Hey, Rick. Awesome. All right. Well, we're just going to give it just another minute or two because our participants are slowly but surely coming in. I hope everyone is doing well. While everyone is coming in, let me just go ahead and share some housekeeping issues. Let me introduce myself and then share some housekeeping issues. Definitely keep dropping your name and where you're from in the chat. I just want to make sure that everybody knows that we'll be taking questions. I'll do a very short intro here in the beginning and we'll be taking questions, but drop your questions in the Q&A. So just be aware of the fact that I won't be taking questions from the chat, but from the Q&A. So definitely make sure you are dropping your questions in the Q&A. And I will be sure to get those once I kind of do an overview of this week's topics. And for those of you who don't know, this week's topic is how to overcome obstacles on a job search, obstacles and setbacks. And so we all know everybody, the whole world has kind of been introduced to one major setback called COVID-19. And so it's impacted our lives in so many different ways. And so we're going to talk about from the perspective of a job search and really how to kind of keep moving forward and not let that completely derail you. We're definitely going to get into some questions there. So, all right. So participants are still coming in, but to make sure that we have maximum time for questions, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hi, Austin. Hi, Lahita. Debo. Hi, Sandeep. Awesome. Thanks so much for joining, guys. Thanks so much for joining. So let me go ahead and just kind of introduce myself. For those of you who are familiar with Springboard, I'm actually a career coach with Springboard. I work with the data science, data analytics, and machine learning, artificial intelligence verticals. And so that's primarily who I work with. But again, I've had exposure to just about all of the courses. And so we'll be talking generally speaking about kind of the job search in general. So don't hesitate to drop your questions, even if they're more general in sense. And just to kind of give you a little of my background, I actually have, I own my own business, actually. I do Springboard as a part of my business, but I have my own business called Joyfully Career Strategy and Confidence Coaching. And I work with professionals, again, who are looking to find purpose in their careers and move out of, lackluster careers into more purposeful, meaningful work. And so I actually do that on the side. And I've been in business for myself for the last 3 years, been in the career development space for the last 7 years. I've worked actually for a university, an adult university, online adult university, and had the opportunity to come and work with Springboard with students here. And so I just had I have a background actually in HR and people development. So I've got a wide variety of experience as it relates to career and kind of how to prepare yourself, how to make sure that you are on top of things and taking ownership of your own career. So I'm excited to come in today and talk a little bit about how to overcome obstacles in the job space, how to overcome obstacles and setbacks. So let's go ahead. Yeah, it looks like we've just kind of topped out here. Let's go ahead. And I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation. And again, like I said, please make sure and start dropping your questions in the Q&A. I did have a few questions from people who registered already, and we'll jump into those as soon as I've kind of gotten through this little mini presentation that I'm going to do. But make sure and drop any questions that you have in the Q&A, and we will go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go ahead and present and share my screen with you all. And just let me know if you can see my screen. If you can drop that in the chat for me, that would be fantastic. Okay, so if someone could just let me know, are you seeing my screen where overcoming job search and career setbacks? Perfect. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you. Thank you, Douglas. Thank you, everybody. So let's go ahead and jump into this topic. And again, really want to, like I said, dig into this topic and really let you know that, overcoming setbacks in your career, it really is just a matter of a few simple things. And we want to kind of go through what those simple things are. So to kind of get started, again, I've just kind of introduced myself to you. Again, a 20-year history in corporate, as well as not-for-profits, the last 7 years being spent in career development. And I have a motto here: you don't have to settle. All you need is the right skills and the right mindset to really kind of help you move toward the success that you've identified. And again, having been in this field for so long, one thing that I know for certain is that it's not just a matter of the skills, right? It is a combination of confidence and your skill sets. Okay. And so that's why part of what I do is actually confidence building, because what I find is you can have a perfect resume, but if you don't have the confidence to really go after the position that you've identified as something that you want to do, if you don't have the confidence in yourself, then it's hard to project that confidence to employers. So confidence is a big piece of that. And we're going to talk a little bit about that as a part of overcoming the job search as well. Okay. So that's just a little bit about me. So let's jump right into our topic today. So when you're thinking about overcoming obstacles in the job search, the very first thing you have to address, you just can't skip over this, is your mindset. And what I mean by that is if you don't have the proper mindset, then like I said, I have seen the people who have the perfect resume, who have all the right credentials, but can't break through, can't kind of move forward with their career plans and goals because their confidence is shot, because they don't have the right mindset. And so I wanted to talk about a couple things that whenever you're thinking about overcoming things from a career perspective, overcoming an obstacle or a setback, you really have to get your mind right. Okay. And so I really wanted to talk a little bit about a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. Just drop in the chat and let me know. Does everybody know what the growth mindset versus a fixed mindset is? Okay. It's been a hot topic for the last several years. And so want to just make sure, yep, perfect. You guys are saying that you understand that. And so in the context of a career, a growth mindset says, you know what, I know that I can develop the skills that I need to be successful. And even though obstacles are going to present themselves, even though I am going to have setbacks and problems, I know that I can overcome those and eventually reach my goal. So that's a growth mindset. Okay. And during this time, like I said, obviously with the COVID-19 that's kind of coming here, it's thrown a curveball in all of our lives. And we understand that. But if you have a growth mindset, you're perfect. If you have a growth mindset, you understand that, hey, okay, things are a little different. Everybody's having to adjust. But hey, if I persevere, if I keep my eye on the goal, my long-term goals, then I will be able to make the necessary adjustments and still go after the dream job that I've envisioned. So that growth mindset is absolutely essential. Perfect. Yes, Carol Dweck. Thank you, Elise. Perfect. Carol Dweck. That's absolutely right. She's done a ton of research on this particular topic. Now, the fixed mindset, on the other hand, is where you have basically decided, you know what? The skills that I have, I was born with a certain ability, and I really can't develop that. I really can't develop that. I can't really move past my limitations. This is what I have. This is what I was born with. And the other end of that is that, you know what? When circumstances hit me, hey, there's nothing I can do. I have no control over the fact that a circumstance hit me, and there's no way I can get up and move on from this. That's a fixed mindset where something is happening to you. Okay. Something is happening to you that is hindering you or stopping you from moving forward. So you have to determine, you actually have a choice right now. The research has shown that you can choose that growth mindset or that fixed mindset. So during this time, again, we all know that things are a little bit uncertain. Things are a little bit, we just don't know kind of what to expect, during this season, but you do have the choice. It is totally your choice to say, I'm going to have a growth mindset and actually understand that even though this is a curveball, that there are ways for me to get past this, and I'll figure out what those ways are. And again, that's why we are here doing these career AMAs, to kind of give you strategies and tips for how to do that. Or you can kind of take that fatalistic view and say, wow, this has happened to me. My life is over, my career is over, and so let me just sit back and just settle for what's happening. That is a fixed mindset, okay? And so you have the choice. I would encourage you to really take hold of that growth mindset. And again, Carol Dweck, there's tons of information and videos about the growth mindset. So one thing that I would say is, if you're kind of following the news cycle, like all day, every day, maybe replace some of that time with following people who are talking about ways that you can overcome. And again, I would recommend that growth mindset, videos and things of that nature, to really start replacing some of the anxiety that comes from constantly updating and feeding on kind of what's going on with the problem. And let's focus on the solution and moving your job forward, okay? So the other thing that I wanted to talk about when it comes to mindset is grit. And grit is passion and sustained persistence applied toward a long-term achievement. And this is really important, again, during this season. You have to be patient because we don't know what's going on. Again, we're not quite sure how long the shelter in place is going to last. We're not quite sure how long it's going to take employers to adjust. We're not quite sure what the market's going to look like after this pandemic. And so with that, you have to just kind of settle in your mind that, hey, well, however long it takes, I'm gonna have the grit and the perseverance to really see this out. Is everybody familiar with the book Grit? Again, another amazing researcher who has come up with some specific things that you can do and specific characteristics that will help you overcome obstacles. So is everybody familiar with that term grit? Again, grit has to do with that long-term ability to persevere through obstacles and setbacks. And so again, it's one of those things where you have a choice. You have a choice. Are you going to persevere? Okay. So again, we wanted to start with mindset because it's super important that until you really kind of get your mind, get settled in your mind, how you're going to walk through this situation, you really are going to be in a situation of flux. You're going to constantly be in that situation where you feel that anxiety, you feel that uncertainty. It's okay to feel those things, but you certainly have a choice that you're going to persevere with growth and also with grit. So mindset is super important. Okay. So again, drop any questions that you have in the Q&A and we'll definitely get to those at the end. The next thing I definitely wanted to just touch on is that now more than ever, you have to understand your why and your purpose beyond just the paycheck. And let me explain what I mean by that. What I mean by that. You've heard that a lot of employers, they're pausing, they're freezing, they're really thinking about their essential hires. What are essential hires? You're going to hear that term come up a lot. Essential services, essential hires. And so you really have to be very clear on what your purpose and your why is behind your job search, because that's what's going to allow you to, hold on to your grit, right? And keep your growth mindset. Because if it's just about money or something that is really, hard to hold on to, then it's hard, you're gonna be discouraged if you see that people are constantly hiring and freezing. Okay. But if hey, my purpose in doing this is that I feel like I really want to whatever that looks like for you. You know, I really want to get involved with an organization that's doing things, you know, from a social perspective, where I've always had an analytical mindset, and I love helping organizations really innovate and find ways to help people. And I know that this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so I'm not just jumping from career to career based on a trend. I know that this is who I am. This is who I was meant to be. And so I'm gonna, you know, my purpose is that I'm gonna be able to add the most value doing this particular job, or, you know, transitioning into this new role. You have to be very clear on what your why and your purpose is during this time, because they're saying we want essential roles. We want people who can come in here, add value immediately. Okay, and you're going to be able to showcase the value that you add when you know your why and when you know your purpose. Okay, so again, any questions on that, please drop the Q&A and I will get to those here in just a second. Okay, so the next thing you want to be very clear on, okay, these are things, just kind of going back to the topic, that are really going to help you persevere and move forward, even though there are obstacles and setbacks in place right now. What is your goal? Okay, and you have to be clear on your goal. I put an example up here. You need to be clear and concise. So you need to be able to, you know, say, you don't necessarily have to have a job title in mind. You know, in this example, the goal is find a sales analyst position with a mid to large size company in the Chicago area before the end of 2020. That's very, very clear. But even if you don't necessarily know, hey, I want to be a sales analyst, you might be able to say that I know that, you know, analyzing data, being able to pull the insights out and, presenting that information to employers is very, very important to me. Or I know that helping design user experiences that are intuitive for people who come to websites, that is very, very important to me. I can get lost in that. Being able to say, this is specifically what I want to do. And then being able to identify, I want to be aligned with a company that's small so that I can have my hands in a lot of different areas and be able to grow quickly, because I'm going to have access to a lot of different functions within the organization. And, you know, I have family in a certain area. And so it's really important to me that I be in this particular location, and then putting a date on it. Again, the point of putting a date on it is it gives your brain a target. So it's super important that you do put a date on it. Whether you hit that date exactly or not is not the issue. The issue is that you want to be clear so that you give your brain a target, a goal, you know, that you can really be persevering and pushing toward. Okay, so that is the reason why you want to have a very clear and concise goal. And then the last thing that I want to kind of point out, the last couple of things, is that you really during this time need to have a career strategy versus just a general job search. And let me explain what I mean by that. A general job search, you will understand what I mean when I say this. A general job search typically is where you're saying, oh, I don't care what job I get. You know I want to be, let's just say you've identified your goal and you said, I do want to be a sales analyst, or I do want to be a UX designer. But you're saying, I don't care what company, I don't care what industry, I just need to get in. And so I'll take anything. And so you're kind of randomly, broadly applying, and you really haven't taken time to really understand kind of the company culture, what culture you need, kind of what skills are really going to be a great match for the companies you choose, what industries you're going to be most valuable to. You really haven't taken the time to do that. And so you're just kind of randomly kind of throwing it out there and hoping that something sticks. That's a general job search. During this particular season, you really need to have more of a career strategy. And a career strategy is where you sit down and you ask yourself 4 primary questions. Okay. And those questions are, where are you now? So think about where you are now. Are you actually in a job and you're looking to transition? Because again, you've identified that there's someplace else that you need to be that's going to be more in alignment with, you know, kind of your innate gifts and skills and desires. Okay. So where are you now? Are you unemployed? Okay. If you're unemployed, then you need to take stock of that. What does that look like? If you've already applied for unemployment, how much time do you have to really start building out a network, identifying what your next step is going to be so that you can start moving forward? So first of all, where are you now? Kind of think about why you're in this position. For a lot of you, it may be external. Okay. So COVID-19 meant that you got laid off. Okay. But even though you got laid off, is there something that you can be doing? Why are you in that position? Is there something that you can do in order to set yourself up for success for the next position? Okay, so think about kind of why are you in this position? Did you have a network in place when this thing happened? Did you have a backup plan? Okay, were there some skills that you were missing that kind of put you in a position where now that you are laid off, you're you're kind of struggling. You want to think about the why, because if you think about the why, that will help you prepare for the next season and help you prepare to make sure that you're ready if something like this were to ever happen again. Because the truth of the matter is, whether it's COVID or whether it's just a company restructuring, you never really know. Things can just randomly happen to you. And so you really need to always have a plan in place for how you would regroup and get back out there once, if something like happened that was out of your control. Okay, so the next thing you want to ask yourself, where have you been? And this is an assessment of your skills, your trainings, your certifications, all the things that you've done in your career, in past experiences. You want to think about where have you been and how can you leverage the things that you've already done as you're thinking about moving forward. Okay, again, in this season, you really have to kind of start gathering all the things that make you uniquely you, that differentiate you from the pack, from the other thousands of people that are out there looking for that similar role. And you really have to kind of think about, what do I have that will set me apart and that will cause me to stand out from the competition? Then you have to sit down and think, where do you want to go? So where do you want to go next? Okay, and you have to be clear about that. We talked about setting that clear goal. So where do you want to go next? First of all, define it. Okay, if you want to go to Chicago, you have to have a clear understanding of where you're going in Chicago and start moving that direction. Okay, you can't just say, I want to go to the United States. That's not going to get you anywhere. Too broad, right? Okay, and then how do you get there? That's the strategy. And again, that's where coaches like us come in and really help you kind of dig down into the strategies, your networking strategy, your overall career strategy, how you're going to, your elevator pitch, your story. These are the things that, the tactics that now help you get to where you want to go. So you really need what we call a career strategy. And then who do you know that could help you achieve this goal? And again, this is not someone who's going to do it for you. Okay, nobody's going to do it for you. Nobody's going to do it for you, but there are people who can support you, people who can come alongside you, guide you, brainstorm with you, make recommendations, to you and help you to kind of move forward. So you have to have a community during this time. If you don't have community, you need to find community and make sure that you are engaging daily. I would say daily, because the in-person connection is now no longer available to us. You need a community that you can engage with daily, who's on the same path, doing some of the same things, or a little bit ahead of you even, so that you can really begin to get that support and really understand that, help you build that confidence up to kind of move towards your goal. Okay, so those are just some things that you definitely want to be aware of, some points that you want to be aware of in terms of how to overcome setbacks and how to overcome obstacles that present themselves. Because again, today, it's happening today with COVID-19, but let me just assure you that once this is over, some other setback, some other obstacle is going to come in some other form. And so you always want to be aware and ready to be able to overcome those things. All right, guys, so let's jump right in and get to questions that we have. I just want to, again, remind you that if you have any questions, go ahead and drop those in the Q&A, and I will definitely get to those. Actually, for those of you who registered, I do have a few questions that I'm going to jump into here and want to make sure we use the remainder of this time to really get into the questions. So one of the questions that came up during the, as a part of the registration is this the right time to continue searching for a job? Okay, so let me go ahead and answer that. Yes, the short answer is yes. And let me tell you why. It's kind of going back to what I just said before. There is always going to be something that's happening, whether it's internally, whether there are problems that are going on, internally with family, with health, with other issues, or externally, economy and different things. There are always going to be problems that are coming up. If you're waiting for everything to be perfect and excellent before you move forward and continue doing your job search, then you'll never get started with anything. So now is as good a time as any. As a matter of fact, what I've been telling, my clients and the students that I work with is that you really want to, now is actually an excellent time to really begin building up your networking strategy. And what I mean by that is, even though the in-person element has been removed because of the shelter in place, there's no place to go, right? People are at home, they're working from home. They're probably spending a lot more time on their computer. And so people have a lot of extra time on their hands. And so if there's anybody you ever wanted to meet, anybody who you ever wanted to have an informational interview with, have a conversation with about what they do, or get tips and advice, recommendations, things like that. If you ever wanted to start building relationships, now is actually a great time to do it. So yes, now is a great time to continue your job search. Again, you have to be intentional. And we have actually resources that we've curated about companies who are in a hiring freeze, who are on a pause, and those that are hiring. Again, I have several recruiting colleagues that I keep in touch with, and they're letting me know about the jobs that our employers are still looking for and are still consistently hiring. So yes, now is the time to continue your job search. But again, you have to make sure that you are being very strategic about it, and not just generally just out here applying without really knowing what's going on with that specific company. But keep the momentum going, start building out that strategy. And then, like I said, when things start to open up, you will be far ahead of the pack. So yes, now is definitely the time to continue with your job search. Okay. Another question that came up is, how do you keep in touch and stay top of mind with connections that are working at a company that is currently experiencing a hiring freeze? Again, this question goes back to the networking piece. Even if a company is in a hiring freeze, you want to understand that companies go through seasons of hiring freezes quite often. It's not just, this is not the first time a hiring freeze has happened for a company. So you want to think, even if a company is in a hiring freeze, they're still operating, they're still in business, professionals are still working. And so again, you want to go back to your networking strategy and really start engaging with people at the company by, coming up with specific questions that you have about the company, about the work, things that you want to know, and just build that relationship up with the person. Again, I think it's important at this particular time to just kind of share that don't go in asking for referrals and introductions if you don't even know if the company is in a hiring freeze. If they are in a hiring freeze, right now is the time to build relationships. So just have conversation with people, okay? As opposed to asking for referrals or jobs during this time. So do your research. Do your research. You might ask, you might say, this is a company that I've had in mind for a number of years. And I'm just curious, with everything going on with COVID, are you guys in a hiring freeze? I'm just curious about that. And just maybe ask the question even directly to the people that work at that company, so that you know that going out the gate. But then use that time to, again, build the relationship. Okay, so now I'm going to stop and take a couple of the questions in the Q&A. And so let me see. So Cindy says, after sending in my resume and cover letter, what else should I be doing? Okay, and so let me go ahead and I'll answer that. So after sending in my resume and cover letter, what else should I be doing? So Cindy, after you sent in your resume and your cover letter, again, if those documents are already in the application system, then the next thing you definitely want to do is make sure that you are now connecting with people at that organization. Okay, because, and I've seen this happen many, many times. If you connect with the person at the organization, Cindy, you want to ask very specific questions, ask them for an informational interview, ask them, have very specific questions ready to go that you want to ask them about kind of what they're looking for during this season. Kind of ask them, if you could have a conversation with them about kind of what type of, what type of employee they're looking for and what skills they're most looking for, and really start reaching out to people who are at the companies and begin your networking strategy. That is the absolute best way to start getting your name out there, or starting to get top of mind with people. So if you haven't had the opportunity, or you're not quite sure how to do networking, then that is something you really want to spend a little time with doing, making sure your LinkedIn profile is up to par. And then for every resume and cover letter that you send, you want to make sure that you reach out to somebody working at that company and ask for a 10 or 15-minute conversation, not to ask about a job, okay? But initially just to ask kind of what's going on with the company, what positions are they still hiring for? Kind of how can you, what are some insights that they might be willing to share with you to help you strengthen your candidacy. So you really want to be getting out there and making sure you have connections with the company. Now, if you find out that they are hiring and that your resume is in fact a very high match for what they're looking for, then at that point, they may be happy to refer you, okay? But the point is, you want to always couple networking with any resume and cover letter that you send it in. You cannot depend on an applicant tracking system to pull you to the top. Sometimes your resume and cover letter may never even be seen if it's going through just an applicant tracking system. So the way to make sure that it does come to the top is to make sure you're reaching out to people who have the potential to actually go in and refer you. Okay, so Cindy, hopefully that answers your question about what else you should be doing after submitting that, submitting your resume and cover letter. Okay, and so I mentioned a book called Grit. Yes, I did. And the author of Grit, I am actually, the name is, I want to say it's Angela Duckworth. Okay, so I'm going to answer that. I mentioned a book called Grit. Yes, this is another thing. If you have some extra time on your hand, start reading, do some reading for professional development. That book, Grit, Angela Duckworth is the person that I believe authored that book. And so, yes, if you're thinking, hey, I'm not sure I have what it takes in terms of that grit or perseverance, or I just want to refresh myself on that, definitely get that book. Use some of the time that you have on your hands to read some of these books and understand strategies that you can use for how to move forward. So that is a book that I highly, highly recommend. Okay, so perfect. Okay, and so Lahita asked, how are meetups and networking going to be possible during this pandemic situation? Lahita, this is an excellent question. So obviously the in-person networking is kind of on hold in terms of going and gathering with a large group of people. But again, I have, and let me just kind of stop here. I have found that networking has actually become more fruitful during this time. Okay, so Lahita, let me just kind of share that if you kind of focus your efforts on making a list of companies that you are deeply interested in, then you want to definitely make sure and go through that list of companies and begin identifying people who are in the roles that you're most interested in and reaching out for one-on-one conversations. Okay, like I shared, because of the shelter in place situation all across the US, most people are in their homes, right? They're on their computers. And so they are, in fact, available to answer questions and to have these conversations with you. So you definitely want to start reaching out for some one-on-one type of situations. What I tell people is go through the connections you even already have and begin sharing with them. Hey, I am, in the process of transitioning into a new field, whatever that field may be. And I'm looking for connections that I can maybe have one-on-one conversations with via Zoom or via Skype. I'd love, if you have someone in your network who would be willing to chat with me, I'd love to have that conversation. So you really need to start tapping into your network connections that you already have, friends, family, and then actually even do some cold outreach on LinkedIn and start asking for those one-on-one conversations. That's how networking is now being done. And again, I've been working with students for the last several weeks while the COVID-19 situation has kind of been unfolding. And I have gotten some great feedback that the one-on-one responses, they are starting to see probably even more responses now than they did prior to this, when obviously people were so busy and unable to really kind of get to these questions and really kind of get to them. So definitely make sure you're doing some one-on-ones. In terms of meetups, I literally just had a conversation